Folks at home, welcome back to the Crimson Oak Pond, and if you missed the previous videos in this series, I'll put a link down in the description below. And now the pond is fully stocked with all the bass, bluegills, and bait fish, and if you missed the last video, we went fishing with micro lures trying to catch one bluegill and one bass to keep as pets. So we're going to be finishing up setting up their aquarium and new home later in the video, and we're also going to be working with a company called EcoFlow and installing this cool new solar panel setup. But before we get into all of that, it's time for an update on the most important thing in the pond, and that's the fish. So I've been putting underwater cameras in around the feeders, and I was hoping that eventually we'd start seeing the bass make their way in and either eating the pellets or maybe even chasing some of these smaller bait fish. But unfortunately, the bass still haven't found the feeding areas, so all of the other bait fish have been in the pond for months, and they've already got those feeders patterned, and they know exactly what time of day the pellets are going to come out. But the fish you're seeing here are mostly fathead minnows. Some of them even look like bass and are the same size as the bass. But most of these are fatheads, and then you can see some of the smaller ones are the mosquito fish. But this is quickly becoming one of my favorite things to do, and that's come out to the dock at night, because that is the one spot I can see all of the fish, the bass, bluegills, and bait. They all come and congregate around these lights at night. Those smaller fish will feed on the bugs at the surface, and then that'll draw those bigger fish in, and you can see those bluegills and other bass that are hanging out right there in those dark areas waiting to ambush. So I've been kind of torn. I was thinking about using a net to just scoop up one of the small bass to put in the aquarium, or I may even give it another couple of weeks and try to come back and microfish for one, because they are growing really quick. So I've got all my underwater cameras set up, but I had one other idea to capture some of this feeding action, and I got a game camera and I set it up right here at the base of one of these feeders. And so we feed the bluegills twice a day, and so each time the feeder shoots the pellets out, it's going to trigger that camera to start recording. Now let's watch a couple of these feedings. That one went airborne after them. So if you'll notice, right there before the feeding starts, it does a countdown with a beep, and there's 10 beeps, and then it starts feeding the pellets. And that's also one way you start conditioning the fish to listen for those beeps and also the sounds of the pellets, and that's how they know it's feeding time. I think 90% of the fish activity here is bluegills. These are the larger pellets. You do see some shad jumping around, but they may just be running from the other bluegills. But I haven't found a really good way yet to get an underwater shot of this. I may have to set up a custom mount to mount a camera to out there in the middle of the pond. And a bird coming down to get a leftover pellet. Alright, since we struggled to catch a little pet bass out of the pond last week, I came up with a better idea. I'm going to try to trap one, and if you guys remember, I've used this in the past. But basically you put bait in these little compartments, and I'm going to use bread and then the pellet food that all the bluegills have been eating. So the fish have to swim into that hole or the hole on the other side to get in there to the bait. And then once they get in it, they're just not smart enough to swim out of that. And my thoughts are, even if the bass don't want to eat the bluegill food or the bread, I think once there's some shad and little small bluegills in there, they'll go in after them. All right, folks, out here about to fertilize the pond. And this is always an exciting moment because snakes typically live up under this boat. There's actually a open part of the hole there, and that's where they hang out most of the time. And that's the fun part. I gotta reach my hand on the outside of the boat back there and put the plug in before I even really know what's up under there, because I can't push it off until I put the plug in. So let's see what kind of snake we got out here today. Yep, there he is. I'm pretty sure that's a water snake again. And these guys are getting a little too close for comfort. So those of you that have followed along with the pond build, you've seen the good and the bad. We've had some leaks and other bad things happen in the past, and now we've got a small algae bloom, which was kind of to be expected. This popped up right after we fertilized the first time, and it's one of those things you have to manage closely. The fertilizer creates an algae bloom, which is really good for the fish, but that's why it's extremely important if you start fertilizing the pond, you have to keep fertilizing it, because the algae bloom actually helps itself. It darkens the water and keeps the sun from penetrating down to the bottom, because if the water's too clear and the sun can penetrate, the algae can take over in a hurry. So we're keeping up with our fertilizer schedule and doing it about every 2 weeks, and that should keep this algae in check. But there are some other things you can do, like spraying it if it gets out of control, or it'll die off in the winter. But it's something we'll have to keep an eye on. Alright, I'm back a few days after fertilizing, and I feel like we've definitely gotten that green algae bloom that we wanted. Let's go ahead and measure the visibility. As soon as the white disappears, that's our visibility. And I think it's somewhere right there around 22, 23 inches. Still need it to darken up just a tad. Alright, so now we're going to be talking about a backup power supply out here at the cabin. So we just got the power company to hook up electricity out here, but I don't want to have to rely on them, so we were looking at alternative solutions, and we found this company called EcoFlow. And folks, this is a tank of a battery. It can completely power the Crimson cabin. You see it's got some controls here on the front, but it doesn't work on its own. It also has this smart extra battery backup, as well as this solar charging kit. So we're going to work on getting this EcoFlow hooked up, but my future plans are to install a switch right here between our electrical panel and the power company's panel, so I can turn the switch off, which will completely disconnect us from the power grid. So the first thing I want to do is just leave this panel here. I might spin it around, and we're going to get these power cables hooked up to the batteries. I want to see how long it takes Mr. Sunshine to power these guys up. Alright, I just downloaded the EcoFlow app, and you can see we have 3 days and 5 hours of electricity left, and it's at 31%, so this thing is a beast. Alright, it seems to be a pretty simple setup. We've got a positive and a negative coming off the solar panel. We're just going to plug those in, and then just take this end and plug it into the Delta Pro. There you go. You can see that input power has went up to 263 watts. And that was pretty fast. It only took about 3 hours to completely charge. And I swapped the power over, and now we've got everything in the cabin completely powered by the EcoFlow battery packs. So if you're interested in checking out one of the Delta Pros, I'll put a link down in the video description. They've got their biggest sale of the year going on right now. It's called Prime Day, and it lasts from July 4th through the 17th. And you can get up to $900 off select units. And one of my favorite features, they built in a handle so I can easily carry it to all the locations around the farm. And now I've basically got power everywhere I go. And now it's time to give you an update on the latest pair of wild ducks that have made it out to the pond. And I'm pretty sure that these are called black-bellied whistling ducks. And you duck guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But they mostly hang out around the southern states, from Texas to Alabama, and down in Central America. And one interesting fact about them is they pair for life, so whenever they find a partner, that's who they stick with. But these two are pretty friendly. They've let me get a lot closer to them than the other wild ducks. So if these guys are still here in the next video, we'll have to name them. And now that the pond is complete, it is time to start on pond build number 2. Just kidding, but maybe here one day in the future. So today we're going to be finishing up some construction on the cabin. We're putting in the septic system, and check out this big guy. But we basically oversized the septic system because we're eventually going to build a bigger structure out here, maybe like a fishing lodge. And so we're designing all of our power, septic, and water to supply those future buildings. But you can see we have that really rich soil there on the top layer. They finally got the hole deep enough. And this is the part I was waiting to see. But as you can see, they got the perfect rig for it. And they definitely made it look easy. And the last thing they have to do is fill the dirt in and add all the field lines. Alright, they got everything covered up. I went ahead and flagged it off so none of the contractors drive over it. Last thing I'm going to do is go through and seed it, and that'll be a wrap. And the next thing we're going to do is dig a trench from the well over to the cabin. Didn't take long for him to get that one dug. And then he got that pipe in quick and filled it back up. One of the other little projects we were finishing up is trenching some conduit out here so we could have some electrical boxes out here at the dock. We put a 60 amp service in here, so one of those 20 amp breakers is going to feed the lights, and we'll have 2 20 amp breakers for future projects. And now it's time to finish setting up the 75-gallon aquarium for the new bluegill and bass. Alright, out here in the backyard I got some wood pieces. I'm going to go ahead and soak them for a couple of days, get rid of some of those tannins. But for a bass tank, you got to have some wood. Here we are 24 hours later. You can see all that brown water that's being released out of that wood, so we'll soak it for another 2 or 3 days. Alright, it's time to add some structure for the fish. We got different pieces of wood that I've been soaking for a week. We also got some plants shipped in today, Amazon swords and things like that. Even got some moss that we may end up putting on some of these wood pieces or rocks. But I think we got a pretty good assortment. Make the perfect bass and bluegill habitat. There we go, folks. I think it turned out pretty good. Got several places for the bass and bluegill to hide. I had a couple wood pieces that wouldn't sink yet, so we're gonna keep them soaking. But that's it. Pretty simple way to set up a bass or a bluegill aquarium. Now there's only one thing left to do, and that's add the fish. I'll take that back. We're also gonna get one of those wraps that go across the back. It'll block a lot of that light from coming in, and then you also won't be able to see the hoses coming down in the back, so make it look a little bit better. This will help cycle the tank even quicker. We'll put 25 milliliters per 10 gallons. You can see it kind of has that cloudy look to it. Now the last thing to do is put some of these root tabs down there at the base of the plants. That'll definitely help them out. Here's a quick look at the canister filter. Got filter pads here on the outside. That goes in the bottom. Got your media here. Bio balls to harvest all that beneficial bacteria, and that's the bottom layer, and you basically do the same thing on the top layer. All right, time to put the bluegill in his new home. So the bluegill seems to have settled into his new home. He's got some pretty color patterns on him, and you know how we like to do it. I'll let you all name all the pets in our aquariums and out there at the farm and in our backyard. So leave your comments down below on what you think we should name this small bluegill. And whoever's name I choose, I'll send you out a prize package. So it's time to plant some more crops. And we've already got a bunch of soybeans and corn and other things planted for the deer. So now we're going to focus on the birds and plant some sunflowers, brown top millet, and sorghum. It looks like I'm just barely going to get this field prepared before that big storm rolls in. And speaking of planting, we got these two girls out here that have been working hard on their garden this year. She's got some potatoes, peppers, tomatoes, watermelons, peas, basically you name it, and Liz has it in this garden. And she's also got a really cool fertilizer system set up that she's going to be explaining to you here in one of the upcoming videos. And Sarah said enough planting for today, time to go have some fun. Every time we fire up the grill, somebody's got to roast some marshmallows. Just another excuse to eat a marshmallow, isn't it?
I don't like my bird, or else I won't eat it.
Yeah. And time for a quick update on the baby ducks. Man, they get so big, so fast. It feels like just the other day we had these little baby ducks that could barely jump into their water bowl. And now they're growing fast, but you can also see that we do have one little runt. But it's feeding time, and all the little babies are happy. So a quick update on our fish tagging system names. If you missed the last two videos, go watch them. It'll explain the full tagging system, but we're going to tag our first 104 bass. The bass names are in the left column, the YouTuber that suggested them is in the right, and we're going to have a lot of contests and giveaways in upcoming videos with this list. But we're about halfway full. You can see the letters that we still don't have names for, so leave those fish names down below, and we'll be selecting some more next video. And it's been this way since day one of the pond build. It's either feast or famine. No rain for 2 months, but when it comes, it floods. And getting 5 inches of rain in 2 hours and more coming is not really ideal. Definitely going to cause some erosion here. And you can see this is a look at the spillway. And this is the first time we've actually had water flowing out of the emergency spillway. And that happens whenever the pond level rises and there's too much water for the drain pipe to handle. But this is the area I was worried about. Most of the watershed comes off the hill and drains in right here. And I've been hesitant to do too much work because Aquascape's going to be building a waterfall that flows right down into this pocket. But I may have to get some bigger stones and riprap in here until that happens because we do have hurricane season coming up. And this just goes to show you this area can get bad really quick. So we're going to be bulling some crawfish this afternoon, and I decided to save a few of them to feed Moby later tonight. So hopefully he's going to enjoy some crawfish later. But I'll show you really quick my Crawfish Bowl recipe. We mix our seasons half and half, so half of it will be swamp fire, and the other half shrimp and crab seasoning from Louisiana. And the rest is pretty simple. You bring the water to a bowl, add your crawfish, sausage, and potatoes, and leave the burner on until it comes back to a boil. Then turn the heat off, add the corn and mushrooms, and let it soak for 17 minutes. And I love this cart style cooker made by Loco. You can dump the crawfish out onto the lid and either eat them off the lid or slide that tray over and pour them down into a cooler. And now it's time to eat. Alright, now it's time to see if Moby will eat a crawfish. It's been at least a year since he's seen one. Oh, he's definitely interested. So last year when we dropped one in, He kept pecking at him until he got his claws off, and then he finally ate him. And he's probably going to do the same thing with this one. So I was watering the oak trees last week and I saw these strange looking caterpillars, and some of you commented and said that it could be bad for the tree. So I came back to check on it today and they were all gone. But look at this. I'm not sure why this oak tree attracts so many bugs and insects. But man, look at the variety of bugs hanging out on this tree. Never seen anything like that. If you guys know what attracts them, leave it in a comment down below. Now let's check in on some of the wildlife cams. You can see we got the deer coming through early in the morning, taking a peek at what's in Liz's garden. And hey, if it was up to me, I wouldn't mind if they nibbled from it a little bit. But Liz would probably get mad for me saying that. And you got one of the owls on top of the cabin on night watch. And you got some fog rolling off the pond this morning. And the deer looking at the garden one last time before they go to sleep. And some of the bucks are in velvet and starting to grow out their antlers. And here's a cool shot of one of the owls going down to the pond to get a drink of water. That's the first time we've seen that. Alright folks, that is going to wrap up this video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button because even though the pond build is finished, we've got a lot of cool things coming up with these fish here in the future. But we hope you all enjoyed this video, and we will see you all next time.